Welcome to the game of love. The nights were drawing in. It was getting cold. Deep in the forest, the saint was with his disciple. Master, can you tell me something about Satyug? The saint looked lovingly at his disciple. Satyug? Satyug was the first cycle of time, my son. Satyug lasted 1,700,000 years. And it was a yug where truth remained supreme in people's hearts. And the average age of a human, my son, was 100,000 years. The young disciple was excited. Could you tell me about Dhruv, please? The saint said, of course. In Satyug, there was a child born to a lady of virtue. The name of that lady was Mata Suniti, and she was married into the house of King Uttanpad. They named the child Dhru or Dhruv. The king had two wives, Suniti, which was Dhruv's mother, and Surichi, which was Dhruv's stepmother. Surichi, the second wife of the king, was young and pretty, but very jealous. She had immense influence over the king. Because she had one eye on the throne for her own child. Dhru, the stepbrother, would often sit on the king's laps and playing with the king. One day Dhru walked into the court of the king. Sitting on the king's lap was his stepbrother. The child ran towards his father and sits on his father's other lap. Surichi, the stepmother, was passing by, and she observes that Dhru was sitting on his father's laps. This agitated her. She did not want her husband, the king, to get close to Dhru. Much anger and envy, much resentment filled the heart and the mind of Surichi. She walks up to the king and grabs hold of Dhru's arm and pulls him sharply off his father's laps. Dhru fell on the floor and starts crying. You are not allowed to sit in the king's laps, she screams, and drags the poor child out of the palace. Such was the influence of her beauty over the king that the king kept quiet. For Dhru, he was in emotional and physical pain. He runs to his mother, who was in another wing of the royal palace. She sees her child crying, sobbing, his eyes filled with tears, and his knees and elbows were grazed. She runs over to Dhru, picks him up and gently places Dhru onto her laps. Wiping his tears off his cheeks and attending to the bleeding knees and elbows, she asks, "What is it? Why are you crying, my son?" There is a narration by Bahadur Das. Dhru hasda ਘਰ ਆਇਆ ਕਰ ਪਿਆਰ ਪਿਓ ਕੁਛੜ ਲੀਤਾ ਬਾਹੋਂ ਪਕੜ ਉਠਾ ਲਿਆ ਮਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਰੋਸ ਮਤਰੇਈ ਕੀਤਾ. Dhru narrates the whole incident. His mother looked at Dhru and said, "Dhru, my child, you must never sit on your king's laps again." Confused, Dhru asks, "Mother, why not? Am I not the king's son?" "You are the king's son." "Then are you not his wife? Or are you his mistress? Please explain. Why am I not allowed to sit on my father's laps?" "I am his wife," she replies. And then she went quiet. डढों लिका मां पुछै तू सावाणी है के सुरीता सावाणी हाँ जन्म दी नाम ना भगति कर्म दृढ़ीता. Dhru looks at his mother. Why are we in this position? The young child asks. Why are we so unloved? Being a religious lady, she replies, because my son, we did not meditate. We did not show any devotion to the divine. Dhru then asks, Mother, then what can I do to obtain happiness and love? How can I become a king? How can our enemies become our friends? The mother replies, My sweet, sweet child, worship the divine. Only through the devotional worship of the divine Lord will you achieve all that your heart desires. And in the writings of Bahadur Das, it states, Kis uddam te raj milai, shatru te sab hovan mita, Parmesar aradhiye jiddu hoye pat tupnita. Dhru went quiet. Then hugging and thanking his mother, he replies, If that is all it takes, then I am going to start meditation of the Divine Lord. Night came and Dhru could not sleep. All he could see was the fire of anger in his stepmother's eyes. And over again the whole event was playing in his mind. The moment his mother was fast asleep, he quietly gets out of bed. Barefooted, he walks out of the jungle. Bahar chalya karn tap, man bairagi hoye atita. Out of the palace and into the jungle he walks. Many frightening sounds resounded in the jungle, but they were nothing compared to the feelings of rejection he had experienced. As he was walking along into the jungle, thoughts arising in his mind. I do not know who you are. I do not know how to pray. I do not even know your name, my Lord. But my mother tells me that if I pray to you, then you will grant me whatever my heart desires. After a long walk, Dhru sits down for a rest and closes his eyes to relax. And soon he falls asleep. He wakes up to a magnificent sight of the blossom of the flowers, the warm rays of the sun shining through the branches of the trees, the birds chirping away. He walks up to a floating stream. He takes a sip of water and sits next to the stream, not sure what to do next. He was 5 years old. His innocent young mind thinking, where is God? How will I recognize the divine? As he was deep in his thought, he hears crunching of leaves. He looks and sees a saintly figure. The excited little boy gets up and runs towards the saintly figure, thinking that the divine had come. In his excitement he shouts, Bhagwan, Bhagwan, because these are the words he had heard his mother use. I have found you. The saint replies, No, my son, I am not Bhagwan. On hearing this, Dhru became very sad. The saint looked at Dhru and sensed something was not right. I am Narad Muni. You must be the young prince. Yes, replied Dhru. Your father is searching for you. You must go back. The jungle is not a safe place for you. Dhru refuses to go back. So Narad Muni sits next to Dhru. He puts his arms around him and asks him what was the matter. With tears rolling down his cheeks, Dhru narrates the whole story to Narad Muni, and that his desire to meet the divine was intense, so all his problems could be resolved. Narad was impressed with the love and devotion the child had shown. He places his hand on the young child's head and said, My child, If you really wish to meet Bhagwan, then repeat after me. Keshav Kalesh Hari, Keshav Kalesh Hari. The child repeat those mantras over and over again. When the child opened his eyes to thank the saint, Narad was nowhere to be seen. Dhru found a rock, he sat on this rock, and in innocence faith, he started his meditation of the mantra. So intense was Dhru's meditation that the Lord Vishnu appeared in front of Dhru. My child, I am happy with the purity of your devotion. You will rule the kingdom for 36,000 years, and your name will last as long as time itself. So what is rejection? Rejection is an expression that manifests itself in many different ways. It is an action that we have given and received. This rejection can be overt, equally it can be covert. Loss of a loved one, a crisis in a relationship, the way we behave, for whatever the reasons, the wounds inflicted by rejection are deep and painful. Let's look at rejection in the context of spirituality. First teachings: do not search for happiness and a belonging from society or any other form of relationship born from the three modes of Maya. Why? Any relationship influenced by the three modes of Maya will never give you peace. You will not find a permanent belonging. Second teaching: as much as you do, you will never be enough for the world. At some point, even in the most perfect relationships, rejection is not far away. The young disciple listened intently to his master. And those who have risen above the three modes of Maya, there is no concept of rejection, my son. Their existence is not based upon the approval of others, for they are rooted in the love of the divine. The pain of rejection for the average human being is difficult to bear. My child, rejection is an emotional baggage that crushes our soul, paralyzes our soul, and prevents one from moving forward, stealing the beauty of living, leaving a feeling of inferiority, guilt, anger, and self-condemnation, resulting in an inability to receive or express love. However, we are not the only victims of rejection, my child. Remember, not even prophets of the divine were immune from rejection. So ask yourself, my son, do you want to survive or do you want to thrive? The disciple replies, I want to thrive. If thrive is your answer, then let's go back to the teachings. When Dhru was rejected, he went to his mother, and the advice given by his mother was meditating on the Lord. Advice that changed the course of his life. Why meditate? Because meditation, if performed under the direction and the blessings of a pious soul, over time will reduce our sensitivity to rejection. The effects of Maya will begin to lessen. We will begin to understand the play and the illusion. That all that we see and experience, however real it feels, is simply an illusion of Maya. My child, meditation will show us, teach us, that all the sources of our pain is born from our expectations and attachments. Lured by false expectations, in this illusion we drift away from the divine. The more we drift towards the degradation of Maya, towards the home we belong to, becomes far, far away. Therefore, we want to attach our senses to the divine. A natural withdrawal of our senses from this illusion will begin. All fears and negative emotions will begin to disappear. For a spiritualist, rejection is a blessing. Rejection becomes a process of separation. Separation from what? Asked the disciple. From the false illusions that this world was ever yours, my child. It never was, it never will be. My master once said to me, "Son, the path of the divine can only be truly attained when the focus of your mind withdraws from the world, when it rejects the world. So, son, reject the illusion before it rejects you." We feel the pain of rejection due to a mistaken identity. We belong to the divine. We do not belong to the world of Maya. We are the children of the divine. All other relationships are temporary and karmic. That will give us pain, and then a sense of fleeting pleasures, and then pain again. Let the Lord become your strength. Meditate. Spend time in the satsang of the divine souls. Our Divine Father never rejected us and never will. So we must meditate on the name of our Divine Father. In time, we will rise above the three modes of Maya and enter into our 10th gate, our true home. Son, this cannot be done with the strength of the mind. This can only be done through the power of the Shabd Mantra, a true Guru, Sangat of a pious soul. This, my son, is the triad. In the company of the pious, your soul will be released from the inflictions of the mind, which will take us away from the tasteless and painful ras of the world. Ras meaning taste, my child, to the blissful and absolute Maharas, the great, pure and true nectar of the divine. The master closes his eyes and dips into the ocean of the great Maharas inside him and went into deep meditation.